For the past few years, Mayor Walsh has been trying to eliminate chronic homelessness among veterans. That means providing a place to live, but also a system of supports. One example of that is the transitional housing in Dorchester, Hartford Street House, which is run by the Pine Street Inn. To tell us about the effort is Pine Street's Clinical Supervisor of Veteran Services, Kathy Conley, and a U.S. Navy veteran who's a resident of Hartford Street House, John Pelton. Thank you, Pelton, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
John, you were a Vietnam War veteran, and fast forward to what brought you to Pine Street Inn.
As you age, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you have to regroup and get started over again. And that's what happened to me. I had a business relationship that was working out, and when it stopped, I left. And in order to get restarted and get back on my feet financially and emotionally, I went to the Pine Street Inn. And I stayed there for a short period of time, and because of my veteran status, I was processed through a veterans office and ended up being admitted into this transitional veterans program in Dorchester, which pretty much saved my life.
Explain what you meant by process, because it sounds like paperwork, but it sounds like it's important to get that done too, right?
At the time I was in Pine Street, there was a veterans office located on Harrison Avenue, right outside the building. And I bumped into a Navy veteran, and the Navy veteran helped me as a veterans worker. He got me my DD 214, and he got me some of the paperwork that I needed, my birth certificate and a few other things. He also made arrangements for me to go to the Jamaica Plain Veterans Administration, and they set up an appointment with eligibility, who checked my records and reactivated my status as a combat veteran of Vietnam.
Kathy, explain, this sounds pretty routine almost, but at the same time, you just walk into Pine Street and right away this starts happening. This sounds actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we try to identify of the homeless population who are veterans, because we know we're learning over time that it's a very special population with special needs. So we try to identify them right from their first appearance at the shelter and get them connected with services. So we were lucky enough to meet John, and he came for an interview at our house, and I gave him a tour, and he said he was interested, and when we had a bed available, we welcomed him in. So he's been with us for about 6 months right now, and it's remarkable the goals that he's accomplished in the 6 months that he's been with us.
And John, just the fact that somebody from the Navy was helping you, how did that feel?
We were both non-commissioned petty officers. And we both did sea duty, and we bonded almost immediately. And the man, whose name was Clay, he did amazing things. He accessed a lot of computers and set me up to get into veterans programs that were going to help somebody of my age and my status. And I was unbelievably fortunate.
By the way, when you said sea duty, this wasn't just swabbing the deck. You saw some pretty intense action, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Back in those days, the waters off the Vietnamese coast, which was called the Gulf of Tonkin, which was also nicknamed the Gulf of Tonkin Yacht Club. That's where the United States decided to base 2 carriers, and they flew combat missions every day, at least 2. And one of the joys of my life was to meet Senator John McCain from Arizona, who was he was a squadron commander flying off to Ticonderoga. And because of things we saw, I stayed in communications with him all my life. And of everybody that I've ever seen that lived in the United States of America, that man fought harder for veterans' rights than anybody I've ever seen.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Kathy Conley from Pine Street Inn and a veteran from Harford Street House, John Pelton. Kathy, you said transitional housing. I think a lot of our viewers have heard that before, but what exactly goes on in a transitional housing program?
So our program is a 2-year-long program where veterans who are homeless can sort of have a resting spot. It's like a stepping stone of sorts, where they can come to a place where they have the same bed every night. They have their own private room. We serve 3 meals a day, and we create a sense of family so that they can work on the goals that they've established for themselves, such as permanent housing, improving their health, getting benefits that they're entitled to, getting services, all of that. It's really difficult to accomplish all those goals in an emergency shelter setting because of all the chaos that's there. So I think it's a really important bridge for people that are homeless and looking to get into their own permanent affordable housing. So we teach them activities of daily living, we teach them how to cook, we teach them housekeeping skills, personal hygiene, how to go on interviews, how to conduct themselves on telephone etiquette, things of that nature.
John, how do you feel living there now?
Chris, it's a gift from God to experience a problem as a 70-year-old man and to end up in a facility where there are 16 veterans. Everybody has their own room. Everybody has the ability to lock their room and spend time by themselves. It's a very nice place. It's a very well-run house. Everyone is served food every day. We have access to a washer and a dryer. We have our own bathrooms, which are very well maintained. It's a second chance for United States veterans to get set up for the remaining years.
By the way, what about the goals that you have for yourself? What would you like to do a year or two from now?
I visited some of the finest veterans housing in the Boston area, and I visited one in Quincy, which has a gorgeous fountain outside, and it's run almost like a hotel. For somebody like me, the idea of becoming a permanent resident at a place like that, I've always been very independent. So one of the things that I want is to, again, have my own private automobile and to be able to come and go as I please. So as a result of living in this transitional house and going through this Jamaica Plain facility, because of my background and the things that I saw and the things that happened to me, they have been helping me very much to improve my financial status. So as you go through the health screening and the benefits process, bit by bit, everything gets confirmed. And when I got to this transitional house, I was not receiving any type of veterans benefit payments. And in 6 months, with the help of Kathy and the other people that are there, I've gone from 0% to a 60% disabled American veteran, which is starting to give me enough finances to get on my own and live independently for the rest of my life.
Kathy, how common is that? Because a lot of us who are not veterans think, oh, they get tons of benefits. But is that a common thing for a veteran to have all these things and not know that they're eligible, at least how to go about getting them?
Yes. Many veterans are entitled to benefits, but they don't know that they are, or they don't know how to go about getting those benefits. And so we sort of hold their hands and guide them through the process. The paperwork can be really daunting. And you know, you have to be patient. John is being pretty modest right now. He actually is dealing with two pretty significant medical issues that are directly related to his military experience. He has a significant hearing loss, and he also had cancer from being exposed to Agent Orange. So we were able to help him get in the front door of the VA, meet with a specialist, get diagnosed, and be identified as somebody who is entitled to what's called service-connected disability. So when he started with us, he was at 0%, and now he's at 60%, and the goal is to actually keep going up in percentage to increase his income. But yeah, it's a misunderstanding that veterans have all this money. They really don't.
I'm not surprised that a number of the homeless veterans have health issues. How big a part of their problem is that, you think?
It's a big problem. Big problem. Medical issues, psychiatric issues, substance abuse issues. I was just reading an article the other day, and it said that compared to the average Joe public, military personnel have a much higher incidence of substance abuse, and it's on the increase.
Yeah. Sean, one other thing I wonder about, when you're home there on Hartford Street and you're with these other veterans, some of them who might be a lot younger than you, they have a very different experience. What's it like spending time with them?
It's deja vu. When you get to know these gentlemen, initially everybody talks in general terms about what their backgrounds are, the type of service they were in, and a little bit at a time you start to become very friendly. When I was a younger man, I was blessed to become a lifetime member of the Dilboy VFW in Somerville. And Somerville in the Boston area has the highest percentage of veterans per capita of any city or town in Massachusetts. And the Dilboy Post 529, Veterans of Foreign Wars, practically ran the city of Boston and Somerville. And I met some of the most interesting men that I've ever met on the face of this earth. And most of them have all gone to heaven. Now, back in those days, if you were dealing with the veterans, the World War I veterans were at the top of the list. Then after that, it was World War II. Then after that, it was Korea. And then after that, it was Vietnam. The reality of the situation is everybody had to stand in line and wait their turn. So now World War I, they're in heaven. Most of the World War II veterans are in heaven, and most of the Korean veterans are older. So by waiting your turn, now the Vietnam veterans are at the top of the pyramid, and we're getting the help from the VA that our previous veterans got.
Finally, Kathy, we should mention if people like to know more about this program and other things at Pine Street Inn, is there a way they can follow up on that?
Absolutely. So they could email me directly at Kathy, Kathy.Conley, Conley, at pinestreetin.org. We can also be called directly at 617-892-9283. The only criteria for eligibility is if you're a male veteran over the age of 18 and you're willing to search for permanent affordable housing.
Thank you both very much, Kathy Conley and John Pelton.
Thank you.
We'll have more news in just a moment.